Theme parks are built to be fun for the people. Nobody walks into a theme park expecting danger, and that's why the place feels exciting in the first place. But when something goes wrong at a theme park, it usually happens in the blink of an eye. 1 second, you see people screaming because they're having fun. And the next thing you know, those screams sound completely different. Here's some of the most disturbing theme park accidents ever witnessed by shocked crowds. June 14, 2018 started like any other humid summer evening on the boardwalk in Daytona Beach. Families packed the midway, arcade lights flashed across the ocean front, and the old Sandblaster roller coaster rattled above crowds at the Mardi Gr Fun Center. But at around 8:25 p.m., the 35-year-old ride suddenly turned into a nightmare, hanging 34 feet above the ground. Now, the Sandblaster had originally been built in 1983 and was relocated to Daytona Beach in 2013 by operator Boardwalk Amusements. The wooden steel coaster was known for its rough turns and violent jolts, but riders still lined up every single night for the classic experience. That night, 34-year-old rider Antonia "Tony" Williams and several others climbed aboard the front cars as the coaster began another run along the elevated track. Witnesses later said the ride seemed unusually aggressive almost immediately. "I heard this loud cracking sound and then people screaming," eyewitness Ashley Cunningham told local reporters afterwards. "The whole front section just dropped." As the coaster sped through a curve, the lead car partially derailed and separated from the track. 2 cars twisted sideways in midair, leaving passengers dangling hopelessly above the midway. And moments later, 2 riders were thrown roughly 34 feet onto the concrete below. Emergency crews from the Daytona Beach Fire Department rushed to the scene while horrified tourists watched from underneath the coaster structure. Several victims remained suspended in the air for nearly 45 minutes as firefighters climbed the unstable framework to reach them one by one. And in total, 6 people suffered serious injuries. 2 victims experienced traumatic falls to the pavement, while others inside the hanging cars suffered broken bones, spinal injuries, and severe lacerations. 1 rider was reportedly found unconscious after impact. Witnesses described hearing metal grinding against metal long before the crash finally stopped. Investigators from the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services later uncovered a chain of failures behind the disaster. Their engineering review, conducted by Quest Engineering, concluded that excessive speed was the primary cause of the derailment. According to the report, the coaster entered the curve too fast, placing extreme force on an already deteriorating structure. The investigation also revealed major operator failures. Inspectors found evidence that the ride had been running in a dangerous condition, including rusted track sections, worn components, and maintenance problems that had gone unaddressed. Even worse, officials discovered previous derailments had allegedly occurred before the crash, but were never properly reported. One of the most shocking facts came from the timing itself. The Sandblaster reopened the very same day after being shut down for nearly a month due to a failed inspection. Despite earlier safety concerns, the coaster was allowed to return to operation only hours before the derailment. Following the incident, the Sandblaster was permanently closed. The coaster never operated again and was later demolished entirely from the Daytona boardwalk. Today, the site where the ride once stood looks almost ordinary again. Tourists still walk past the area every summer without realizing one of Florida's most disturbing roller coaster failures happened there. A disaster where riders spent 45 terrifying minutes hanging above the ground, waiting to find out whether the twisted metal holding them would collapse next. On October 25, 2016, visitors at Dreamworld packed into one of Australia's busiest theme parks, expecting an ordinary afternoon. Families lined up for water rides while children crowded the midway. But within seconds, a routine ride on the Tower of Terror turned into a national tragedy. The victims were identified as 32-year-old Kate Goodchild, her brother Luke Dorset, 35-year-old Rusbe Aragai, and 42-year-old Cindy Lowe. The group boarded a circular raft attraction operated by Ardent Leisure and designed by Intamin. Near the unloading platform, a water pump malfunction caused water levels to suddenly drop. One raft stopped unexpectedly on the conveyor system, while another raft carrying the victims slammed into it from behind. The collision flipped the raft backwards, crushing the 4 adults almost instantly. 2 children on board survived. Witness Deborah Thomas later recalled the chaos. People were yelling for the ride to stop. Then suddenly, there was panic everywhere. Emergency crews from the Queensland Ambulance Service rushed to the scene, but investigators later confirmed the victims suffered catastrophic crushing injuries. A coronial inquiry in 2018 revealed the disaster had been only a matter of time. Investigators found the ride had operated for more than 30 years without a proper modern safety assessment. Magistrate Pamela Dowse later stated the required safety upgrades were inexpensive and not difficult to implement. In 2020, Ardent Leisure was fined $3.6 million for breaching workplace safety laws. Family members expressed anger during sentencing hearings. Cindy Lowe's aunt, Helen Cook, told the court, "Knowing her death could have been avoided is unacceptable and infuriating." Dreamworld demolished the ride shortly after the disaster. The accident permanently damaged the park's reputation and later helped push Queensland to introduce industrial manslaughter laws targeting severe workplace negligence. In 2019, a crowded fair in Jhabua turned chaotic when a pirate ship ride, locally known as a dragon ride, suddenly failed mid-operation and crashed to the ground, with children on board. The ride was packed with school children when part of the structure reportedly collapsed, throwing riders violently inside the attraction. Around 20 children were injured, including 15 girls and 5 boys. Witnesses described hearing loud screams followed by panic as parents rushed toward the damaged ride. All the children were crying, and people started running everywhere, one local witness told reporters after the collapse. Emergency teams and local officials quickly arrived at the fairground, while injured children were transported to Jhabua District Hospital for treatment. Fortunately, no fatalities were reported, and authorities later confirmed none of the injuries were considered life-threatening. Senior administrative officials acknowledged possible negligence and safety lapses at the site. Investigators began preparing official reports, while demands grew for strict action against the fair organizers and ride operators responsible for inspections and supervision. Authorities later stated the exact mechanical cause would only be confirmed after a full investigation into the collapse. On September 5, 2021, 6-year-old Wongel Estifanos visited Glenwood Caverns Adventure Park with their family during Labor Day weekend. The mountaintop amusement park was crowded with tourists enjoying rides overlooking the Colorado mountains. But one attraction, the Haunted Mine Drop, would turn into a tragedy within minutes. The Haunted Mine Drop, designed by Soaring Eagle, was promoted as the world's first underground drop ride. Riders were strapped onto a bench before plunging more than 100 feet into a dark mineshaft simulation. According to investigators, Wongel wasn't properly secured before the ride began. Instead of being fastened correctly, she was reportedly sitting on top of the seatbelts while only loosely holding part of one restraint across her lap. A warning alarm sounded before dispatch, signaling a restraint problem. But the operator, reportedly lacking proper training, didn't understand how to respond and started the ride anyway. Moments later, Wongel fell more than 100 feet to her death. A state investigation later concluded the accident was caused by multiple operator errors and inadequate staff training, not mechanical failure. Prosecutors declined criminal charges, saying they couldn't prove criminal negligence beyond a reasonable doubt. Wongel's family later filed a civil lawsuit against Glenwood Caverns Holdings and the ride's manufacturer. In 2025, a Colorado jury awarded the family $205 million in damages, including emotional distress and punitive damages. Jurors found the companies failed to disclose previous restraint system issues and falsely claimed the ride met safety standards. The Haunted Mine Drop has remained permanently closed since the tragedy. For Wongel's family, the lawsuit was never just about compensation. It became a fight to prevent another child from dying in the same way. Sometimes, in the middle of flashing lights and cheerful music, an ordinary day turns into the kind of memory survivors spend the rest of their lives trying not to relive.